Tariffs on steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. are now, as of this morning, officially doubled.
It's going to mean higher canned food prices across the board for American consumers.
Closed many factories. We've lost manufacturing jobs because of the cost of importing.
Politicians once claimed that tariffs would bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. It's not what anyone anticipated. But I have some news for you. More than 100,000 American jobs disappeared in only 3 weeks. Our northern neighbors, meanwhile, are silently giggling all the way to the bank. I'm going to demonstrate something that will make your, particularly if you've been a political observer for as long as I have. This isn't just another trade conflict. Economic warfare is what this is. Who do you think is winning? Let me paint you a picture, people. President Trump redoubled his efforts to advance America first in June 2025, cranking steel and tariffs on aluminum from 25% to a staggering 50%. It was deemed patriotic by the White House. The press applauded. Politicians spoke about reviving industry in the Midwest. This is where things get interesting, though, since this is what they didn't tell you. As Washington was congratulating itself, something noteworthy was taking place 500 meters north of the border. Canada was not having a fit. They weren't making furious speeches or putting on protests. What they were doing was far riskier. They had plans. I've been observing politics for more than 40 years, and I know when a strategic masterwork is being executed. As American manufacturers were closing, Canadian smelters in Quebec were restarting production lines they hadn't utilized in years, and I'm talking about large operations like Alcoa's plants. Are you curious as to why? It's the kind of basic economics that are no longer taught in political science courses. Because of their hydroelectric power, aluminum production in Canada costs 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Strength. In industrial states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, American producers are paying 8 to 12 cents. I have a question for you, trade war veterans. Has a policy ever backfired so badly and so quickly? Leave your comments below. Those who recall the trade wars of the 1970s and 1980s are the ones I want to speak with. Here's where this narrative becomes quite fascinating and explains why all Americans over 50 should pay attention. We anticipated that Canada would respond with counter-tariffs, but they did not. Rather, they took a wonderful action. They began stealing American customers, bolstered their connections with Europe and Asia, and lodged a complaint with the World Trade Organization. It was perfectly expressed by Luke Tremble, a supervisor at a Sagoon aluminum facility. We believed that U.S. policy would wound us. They're suffering more from it. I think the promise that tariffs would bring back jobs, Richard Connors, a 57-year-old laid-off worker in Monroe, Michigan, told his town hall. I'm now applying for unemployment benefits. Does this remind you of any specific economic programs? That made one promise and delivered another. For those of you who experienced the Reagan years, please share your historical viewpoint in the comments section. Allow me to present you with some data that ought to infuriate every taxpayer in America. According to the Boston Consulting Group, American industries are losing almost $50 billion as a result of these 50% tariffs. That is twice as much as the experts had anticipated. Here's the worst part, though. In the first quarter of 2025, aluminum production in Canada increased by 12%. Revenues from the metal industry in Quebec increased by 12.9%. They are flourishing as a result of our tariffs, not just surviving them. In the meantime, since late 2024, the Midwest aluminum premium, the amount that manufacturers pay above, the basic price, has increased by 190%. Who, in your opinion, foots the bill? You do. Each time you purchase a vehicle, a piece of equipment, or even a beer can. For anyone who remembers the days when America was the unchallenged industrial giant, this is where things start to get really scary. Businesses, including as Rolls-Royce, Mitsubishi, and Siemens, are publicly moving their supply chains to Canada, citing the country's stable policies as a major consideration. Take a moment to consider that. America's dependability as a commercial partner is being questioned by our own allies. Rheinell AG's Stefan Kruger wasn't holding back. Strategic operations cannot be subjected to an unstable policy environment. In essence, the German CEO is telling our audience's business owners and entrepreneurs that doing business with America is too dangerous. How recently have you heard foreign corporations discuss America in this manner? Talk about your experiences. Have you observed a shift in the perception of American dependability among foreign partners? For anyone who has experienced a past trade war, this should sound familiar. Similar steel tariffs were intended to preserve American jobs back in 2002. Rather, they cost downstream sectors more than 200,000 jobs. According to the Peterson Institute, over 8 jobs in other industries were lost for every steel job that was rescued. The same strategy is being used, but the stakes are larger and the outcomes are occurring more quickly. Canada was taking action while U.S. officials were giving talks. Initiating emergency loans for aluminum exporters, Prime Minister Mark Carney declared in public that if no agreement is reached, Canada will apply $4 counter tariffs by August 2025. The amazing portion, though, comes after. Additionally, Canadian campaigns are launching them. 91% of Canadians now want lessening economic reliance on the U.S., according to a poll conducted in the middle of 2025. They are establishing their independence in addition to protecting themselves. The question is now. Are we watching the end of America's manufacturing dominance in North America? How long will Americans continue to make the same mistakes and hope for different outcomes? Consider the human cost before responding to that. Question. Politicians and policy are not the only factors at play here. It concerns the industrial communities where the night the shift whistle is no longer blowing. It concerns fathers who worked at the same plant for 30 years and now question whether their children will ever have such stability. It's about communities based on consistent income and hard labor, are compelled to observe as their towns' vitality being diverted north. For anybody who experienced the plant closures of you understand the agony of this story if you were alive in the 1980s or 1990s. Tariffs are not the only issue here. It concerns whether America still has the strategic vision necessary to compete in the 21st century, or if we will continue to make mistakes as our rivals stealthily devour our food. Canadians, I want to hear from you. Do you see your nation growing in ways you never thought possible? What can our politicians learn from previous trade conflicts? Americans, leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and click that bell, because next week, we're looking at how this tariff nightmare is already rising your grocery expenses and energy rates.